right. Good morning, everyone. I am here with my dear friend and a very special guest today, Peter Dennis, author and founder of The Channeling Connection. Peter is an expert in all things channeling. He is a channeling facilitator and past president of the Richmond Hill Board of Trade, the Human Resources Professionals Association of Windsor and District, and the Ontario chapter of the International Graphoanalysis Society. He's a certified consulting hypnotist, a meditation teacher, and, as mentioned, channeling facilitator. He has worked with human resources executives to major business organizations and has taught HR management, emotional intelligence, metaphysics, spiritual development, and self-reliance as a university lecturer, college professor, and adult education teacher. Peter continues to write, talk, give work with channelers, teach spiritual development, and he also helps train people in expanding their channeling connection, which we will dive a little bit into today. Peter, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, this is a pleasure. It's been a couple of months since we've last talked, I guess, and that was most enjoyable.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was an instantaneous recognition, and I know from experience, people like you are so needed during this time because there's a lot of folks that are getting these sort of intuitive nudges, right, or these inklings that, okay, maybe there are some, spirit guides or, maybe things in the unseen realms, right, that want to either connect with me, help me on my life purpose. And Peter does the very important work of helping people get primed and ready, and to also give them like the techniques and tactics to channel safely. Peter, do you want to share a little bit about what brought you into this, out of all things, right? You have a very, very structured experience and a very rich educational background. So what brought you into the worlds of channeling and how did you get started there?
Yeah, it certainly was not by design. I had been in business pretty much all my working life and retired at age 65. One of the things I used to do in business was training. And one of the rather important courses that I was often involved in is goal setting and goal achieving. And I thought, if we could unleash our unconscious mind somehow towards achieving goals, we would have something very powerful. When I retired, I signed up for a hypnosis course, thinking that might be a way to do that. And for a while, I did the things that a hypnotist or hypnotherapist would normally do, help people lose weight, overcome fears, smoke cessation, things like that. But after a while, the clientele began to shift a little bit. They were looking more for things you might call spiritual. They wanted to know about past lives. They wanted to know about life purpose. And hypnotherapy can uncover some of those things to some degree. In the course of doing that with 3 different individuals, I found them reporting lifetimes on other planets. That was my reaction. I had no idea this was possible. I didn't have a clue about it. Anyway, I rounded up a few of my former clients, those that I thought were good subjects for hypnosis, that we had done past life regressions with before, and who I didn't think would be too spooked out if we talked about, being born on.
Sure.
Anyway, the first one that came through or came to me is Karen Ashby. She lives in Stouffville, just a little north of where I am in Richmond Hill. Karen dropped into hypnosis very easily, and we went back to a set of past life and said, "What are you doing, Karen?" And she said, "I'm in my spaceship." Wow. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" "Well, we're monitoring Earth." Why would you do that? Well, humanity's going through a major step in its evolution, and we're here to help. I said, wait a minute, I'm talking to Karen and I'm getting we. By any chance are we may be channeling here? Now, I have no idea what prompted me to do that, but our guides and everything are continually prompting us. So I asked that question, are we channeling? And Karen or somebody responded through Karen, yes, we are channeling. I said, well, who are you? She says, we're the Palladians. And so we had a conversation, and it went from there. Some of the other people I invited to undertake this little study, 3, 4 of them turned out to channel as well. So from there, I got the idea that dropping people down into hypnosis to a very relaxed state where they can kind of open themselves, possibility that someone might want to channel through them is something that I could do. Now, it turns out you don't really need hypnosis. A guided meditation will get somebody into the same state.
Right.
You know, same chemicals flow, metabolism drops, brain waves go to alpha, that sort of thing. So you just get into a nice mellow state and issue an invitation and beings show up.
That's exceptional. I love that. And what's really fascinating for me too is that you use this as sort of an experiment, right? You didn't just dive into a conclusion, but you also drew like certain, maybe parallels or common denominators to really ascertain, is this really happening? And are these coincidences the same? Do you want to share about any of the, maybe the common patterns or threads that you were like, okay, this is too much to be a coincidence?
Yeah. I don't think I challenged the validity of it, because pretty quickly they started saying things that the channelers themselves didn't know about. And, when you get into the spiritual realms, a lot of us humans look for validation, show me the science. Well, you're not going to find it in the spiritual realm. You just listen to it, you be discerning, you decide if it works for you, and if it does, fine. If it doesn't, on sort of thing. But I found the content very consistent, very uplifting, love-based, no fear-based at all.
Right.
Opposed to some of the preaching we get. I just found it extremely helpful, and it's served me well. Maybe not everybody, embraces it, but I think everybody figured that out for themselves.
That's incredible. So, and you to this day have written 5 book series, if I'm not mistaken, on all of these subject lines, right? Can you share a little bit about the amount of different collectives you've bridged and worked with, and maybe some of the examples of different, beings, guides, spirits, or just what we would call entities, right? Or collectives that are working with humanity at this time?
Yeah. Well, I think for your audience to understand, you can start with the idea that we don't die. Our bodies do.
Right.
Our bodies just vessels that we get into in order to have a human experience.
We call them meat suits.
Meat suit. And, they have a shelf life, they die, but we don't.
Right.
So we go back to our home or our natural state. And from there, we can channel through other humans who are presently living on the planet. So I've talked to Albert Einstein, Jesus, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, some of the Ascended Masters, Saint Germain, and then some of those who no longer have, none of those have bodies in that state, but some who never did, archangels, for example. I've talked to Michael. As a matter of fact, I asked Michael to stand by whenever we're starting to channel, especially with new people, and just make sure that it's only beings of the light that we are dealing with. I've never had a dark one show up. And so Michael, Metatron, a number of the archangels I've spoken with, I reckon I've had probably over 1,000 recorded conversations.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating.
Yeah. The last 2 books each have 20 interviews I've had with different ones. I've had Merlin, I've had the Druids, and some of the others that I mentioned before. They also deliver messages. I just got off with someone today who was channeling the consciousness of the human body.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we're talking about healing because this channeler is primarily a healer. She channels kind of as a tool to help her, but I think she might be channeling a little bit more because the messages today were amazing. Most humans don't know they can talk to their body, and they can intend that certain things happen within their body, and it can. Now, we don't know all the technology and the tactics for doing that,
Mm-hmm.
but there's certainly evidence of spontaneous healing. Maybe in this dense third dimension that we live in, it's not so spontaneous all the time. Time exists here and it takes time sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's quite a slew of them. The last book, I took 40 of the recorded messages and just picked them because I thought they were important messages for humanity to hear.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it seems like there are different aspects of what I have experienced as individual, maybe beings, entities, guides, right, that support. And then there's also sort of these councils, right, or even sometimes federations, right, or these collectives and groups where they have sort of sub meetings within the meetings. These ones more typically are here to support humanity and answer like collective messages, not just personal readings. Like we couldn't just tap into the interstellium, for example, to ask, what should I do with my day today? They're here to have, guidance maybe for humanity or the population as a whole. But do you have any experience on working with, say, teams versus just individual aspects that come through?
Absolutely. I should break it down one day, but I would say that collectives come through maybe more than individuals.
Okay.
Sometimes the first ones through are, in a sense, sort of door openers. It
Mm-hmm.
might be a small group. Actually, with Karen Ashby, there was a group of 4 Palladians.
Mm-hmm.
They made it clear that they would be around for a while so that Karen would really solidify the connection and the ability to connect. And now she channels all kinds of things. She's channeled the consciousness of trees. She connects with animals. The dog down the street, the matriarch of an elephant herd in Africa. Things like that. You may recall in Star Trek they had the Federation.
Yes.
And the Federation had rules. You don't go into another civilization and start telling them how to live their life, sort of thing.
Sure, kind of interferes with the free will kind of component, eh?
Well, the same thing is here. There's a Galactic Federation, and many civilizations, and one day humanity will be invited to join this federation. And they have directives. Nobody interferes or intervenes unless it's asked for. And apparently the collective consciousness of humanity has asked for some assistance now. And that's why these guys are here.
It seems like it's almost similar to living life as a prayer, right? And feeling like in our stuck points, in order to receive the help and the outside perspectives from our guides, right? From our higher selves, from God, from source, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we actually need to be open to asking for what we need, or even if we don't know what we need in a moment, asking for our next step to be shown.
Yes. Asking can be a bit tricky in that when you ask somebody for help, you're giving away your own power in a sense. And you want to be careful as to the degree you do that. So I've kind of chased this question around with the beings, and they said, look, you humans aren't there yet, so you need help, ask us. There's plenty of us here just waiting to be asked for help. But yes, ultimately, you're not going to need us anymore. And I think channeling's the same way. To me, channeling is a step that we take to access information and assistance. But at some point in our evolution, we're not going to need it. We can tap into that ourselves.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I notice a lot in my business right now too. I channel like future aspects of self. So when I don't necessarily know what to do at a certain crossroads, we can't look at the past for what has historically been true because it doesn't account for the growth journey that we're on. So sometimes we actually need to tap into the version of us that has it figured out, right? Or the version of us that has the business perfected. I love what you said about raising intelligent questions and also not giving our power away. And I know a lot of people like baby intuitives, beginner starseeds, or people who are just awakening, myself included, when this first happening, I was asking questions in a disempowering phase as if they knew better than myself, rather than saying, what's an additional perspective that might be able to support me? I was saying things like, should I do this? Should I do that? And should is so subjective, right? So it kind of creates this interesting hierarchy rather than saying, hey, I'm already whole, healed, and great on my own. And I just love some new perspectives of what else I could consider to make, this next step even more aligned, right? Or whatever you need in this moment. Do you have any advice for viewers on how they can make sure to keep their questions or their asks, empowering?
Well, you're not going to get a response from any of these beings telling you what you should do.
Yeah.
They're not in that business.
Yeah.
They might present options, but very much they are encouraging us to be discerning and figure things out for ourselves. We have the capability. One of the major lessons or messages from them is to be more discerning. They say, you humans just believe everything your media tells you or your government. Pay attention and think it through for yourself. To some extent, these guys are all lying to you. And the other thing is you mentioned perspective, and that's what you're really asking for. It's like, if you can imagine an apartment building, we're on the main floor and we look out the window and we see what's around us and across the street and that sort of thing. These guys are on the 10th floor.
Yeah.
They look out, they just see more than we do, but they're not always right. The Palladians have told me more than once, we're kind of like your parents. We know more than you, but we can be wrong. So you guys use your discernment, figure things out. That's, I think, probably about the number one or maybe the number 3 message that they come through with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree with that a lot, and I love that, those beings that truly have either your best interests at heart or are coming in real love and presence. They're not here to kind of do that. And I'd love to actually ask you a little bit about how do we discern some sort of like false light messages, right, or those distorted messages. And personally, what I've experienced is the ones that feel sharp, kind of scary, or too good to be true. Like they touch your ego in a way that makes you feel like you're about to be like the next superstar, the millionaire. Those ones are the ones to be like, okay, whoa, like who am I actually talking to, and like what intentions do you have? Not saying that we should approach this with a fear-based, lens. I think play and curiosity is probably our best guide. But could you give some advice for people who are starting out on how to really discern, do the beings have their best interests in mind, or when can we take a look at messages that might need a little bit more clarification?
Yeah, it's tricky. Given the bombardment of information we get, to sift through it all. I think one of the best things we can do is expand our heart. Our heart is wiser and smarter than our brain. And it's the conduit to divinity, really. And we can expand that. You can just intend that it expands with every breath. You can breathe in the divine light through your crown chakra down to your heart. On the exhalation, expand it and say the word heart, and you feel it. Well, the more you expand that heart, the more you have a tool for discernment.
It's like a built-in technology in itself, eh?
Yeah, exactly. When we're doing something that's consistent with our purpose, we generally feel good, and we feel it right here. If we're on track and we're doing things or thinking thoughts that are not consistent with what we're supposed to do, and it makes us feel bad, that's our guidance system telling us, hey, get back on track. You're off.
It's so funny how simple it can be. We create so much complexities out of these things, and we really do, like myself included, I have to catch myself coming back to the basic foundations anytime, right? But the body does really have that sort of inner GPS if we are willing to listen to the subtle clues.
Yeah, you and I have a business background, and everything is analytical. Everything is validated and planned, and well, yeah, in 3D it may work that way, but if you're going to evolve, you got to learn some new tricks.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's what got you here won't get you there to the next place.
Yeah.
Interesting. So for those who maybe have been what we call priming to channel, right? They sense that there's maybe, something more trying to work within, they're feeling inspired, or they're just having that curiosity. I remember when I first heard the word channeling. And when I first heard the Akashic records, there was something that went off in me, brand new in my spiritual awakening, knew nothing about this metaphysical world, but there was something that went off and I was like, I need to know every single thing about that topic. And I went on, what my fiance would call like this bloodhound search, where I just go after everything until you can figure it out. So what are some signs that somebody might be ready for channeling, and what would you recommend to help get them started? How do we need to take care of our body, and what kind of exercises can we do to start building up our muscle for this?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and that's the real question. Many people ask, can I channel? And the answer is sure. But the real question is, are you ready to channel?
Mm,
And often there's some clearing that has to be done,
yeah.
from things that happen in early childhood, things that happen in previous lifetimes, things that happen to our ancestors. We're carrying all that stuff around
Yeah.
unconsciously. And in some cases, there's some clearing required before you can channel.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, no, it's not required. And as you channel, you raise your vibration, and a lot of that stuff just falls away.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are ready, well, they're not the ones that come in and say, oh, channeling is cool. I think I make a lot of money at that.
Oh, yeah. Got to be careful of the intention.
So, I check them out. I ask them basically what makes them think they might channel. And usually they're telling me, well, I've studied this, that, and the other thing. Perhaps I'm a healer. But if I find they're very oriented towards service to others, as service to self, that's a good clue. And then, if they've been on what they might call a spiritual journey or path, doing things that could elevate them, they're maybe meditating, they're often compassionate, kind. These are all vibration raisers. And, I guess maybe I've got guides or something that are helping me with this, but I've had a pretty good hit rate of, telling people that, and actually that's why I started charging, after I wrote the first book about channeling.
Sure.
People started coming, and not always with the best of intentions. So I said, well, look, if you're going to take my time, you're going to pay for it. So
for sure, yeah. I mean, either way, you deserve to fully be compensated. It's important work, and but I think that does weed out people who might just be in it for an egocentric perspective.
Yeah. So the motivation and their experiences. A lot of people say, look, I've been seeing visions, or I've been getting messages, or I've always been psychic, things like that. Yeah. So there's something you can tell right away.
Okay. And so you yourself, you do not channel, is that correct? I'm so fascinated about this because you are an expert in facilitation, and just, do you want to share? I'm actually just so curious. How do you know why you're in the hat you're in, or the role you're in? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it would be so easy to flip-flop, but how do you know that this is your calling and not the channeling part?
Well, again, it goes back to that heart thing.
Okay.
I articulate that I'm here right now to do three different things. One is to help individuals become channelers who are ready. Two is to help channelers bring their talents to the public. And three is to disseminate information, most of which I've learned from other channelers. Now, when I speak in public, I think I'm channeling. When I write, I'm channeling.
Yeah.
Now, channeling orally, I think that's coming. And I think that's going to be probably well honed, you might say, by the end of this year.
Very cool. That's exciting. So we will have
It's a little shift. I think I'll continue to do those three things, but I think the channeling is maybe going to enhance them and maybe open some new doors. I'm not sure.
I love that. So for those people watching, they might see something in what you had just shared. And I know, speaking in public, like when I'm doing my keynotes, when I'm speaking in front of a group, it's not me coming, but I'm still in my body. I'm not channeling anything else, but there's stuff coming out of my mouth where I have no idea where it comes from, but when you see people, it strikes a chord, it hits, a nerve, or they get the little tears, right, or the light bulb moment, there's something bigger at play. So what are some signs that people maybe are channeling, even if they're not going into like what we call like a trance channel, right, or a full body channel? Sometimes people, when they make art, right, when they're writing music, or even some of the best inventions in the world, I strongly believe that they're probably assisted with, other levels of beings. It's not just the person in mind.
I absolutely believe that as well.
Yeah,
Our major inventors have all been prompted and
absolutely.
given ideas. I'm sorry, I sort of lost the thread of your.
I was more curious. So, for people who are watching, what are some signs that they may be channeling that they might not know it? And I can give you an example. When I was a kid, I used to go in hyper focus for hours. I would lock myself into my room and I would design these like board games, and they were so intricate. And I was gone. Like I was, doing my thing, but and I wasn't trance channeling, I wasn't tapping into anything, but there was stuff being created out of me that was just a total flow state. So what are some signs that people might be channeling in their creative pursuits, even if they're not aware?
Yeah, well, I would think many songwriters are
Mhm.
channeling. That I have a friend. She was having dinner with us one time, and she left the table 5 times and ran up to her room where she had a keyboard. It was silent because she used headphones. And by the end of the meal, she had 5 different songs.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there was just something like waiting to be birthed.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Um, so I think people will have ideas. They
Mhm.
will say things that they just wonder, where did that come from?
Mhm.
Well, it may have come from their higher self. It may have come from a guide. They may not be orally channeling.
Mhm.
Um, I guess, you look at creativity in its various forms. I think you'll find instances where nudges, prompts,
Yeah.
ideas have flowed a little more than they might have generally.
It's funny. It's almost like a perfect fitting puzzle piece without effort is how I like to sometimes describe it. When you're in the shower, you're in a relaxed state, you're not even focused on problem solving. Sometimes there's something that fits so good and it's like totally mind blowing, but there was no effort. It just arrived almost wrapped in a bow, like just ready for you.
Yeah, it's effortless.
Yeah,
And, and yes, you won't figure it out with your head or your mind. It'll
right.
be a heart thing that it feels right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you're a big fan of personal development. Obviously, that's, you've got a wealth of experience personally, professionally there. And you're also somebody who is, from what I understand, a pretty good advocate of AI. So how do you kind of combine these worlds of personal development, AI, channeling, and for people who are on this growth path, what's your secret sauce, or like, what do you recommend? How do you work with these things?
Hmm. The last book involved 20 interviews that I had. And the first 6, I think it was, I interviewed somebody, Zoom, this was over Zoom, and Zoom has a component called Fathom, which will give you a transcript.
Mhm.
Well, I would take that transcript, or sometimes even before that, I would just take the recording, the audio recording, and I'd sit and play it with pen and paper. And as each idea came, I would write it down, and then I'd take these pages and I'd try to make an article out of it. And then I'd send the first draft back to the channeler, and he or she might make some changes and send it back to me. And I'd say about 15 or 20 hours later, I'd have an article for the book. Well, with Fathom, it gives me the Zoom conversation in sort of like he said, she said, it's, or I said, they said, whatever. It's a transcript of what happened, maybe 20, 25 pages. I can give that to ChatGPT and say, would you please make me an article of 1,000 words,
Mhm.
grammar, spelling, and punctuation correct,
Mhm.
make it flow with ease and just maybe friendliness or something.
Right, your little tone, exactly.
Bing, out comes the article. send it to the channel, and they say, wow, send it back, and it's in the book. So something that would take maybe 15 to 20 hours is now taking me about half an hour.
It's insane. And what's funny about this too is they've talked about this in the prophecies. They haven't called it AI, they haven't called it ChatGPT, but in places like the Celestine prophecy, for example, they talk about this time where we're entering a faster, let's call it timeline, right? And people are going to be refocused back on their creative pursuits and actually using that to make art, their best work, their most original things that require the human element, because we can outsource it to, the machines, as they call it, even if it is referring to AI. So it's funny to see that even these most advanced things, people do have their mixed beliefs on it, but it has been talked about for a while, and it really is here to stay, right? So we can choose to accept it and use it to support us being, laser focused on our zone of genius, or we can, resist and fight it. But essentially, I don't think it's going away anyway.
Absolutely not. I'm sure when the wheel was first invented, there were some people that feared it.
Oh yeah, we all fear change sometimes.
Or something,
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. So for those viewers,
yes, it's like anything else. You can use it or you can misuse it.
It's true, right? And sometimes there is that sort of adaptation period too, right, where people have to, I guess, just acclimate, right, to life being changed. We do love our routines. We do love our, our ways of thinking, right? So sometimes when it makes us, forces us into a new path, there can be some adjustment times.
Sure. And the programmers and engineers who have put these platforms together have not finished the job, really. There's fine tuning to do.
Absolutely.
And all the time. So this is early stages. There's probably going to be hiccups. You may have heard of that young guy in California who committed suicide with the help of GPT.
Yeah.
It'll improve. It'll get really good. And it'll be another expression of the divine, really.
I have a question for you actually on that matter. And I tend to not want to go down, any fear-based things, but I do actually have pretty strong beliefs on this. And I think it's an important conversation. On TikTok, there's a trend right now where people are using ChatGPT to quote unquote channel. They're saying, act as the Pleiadians, act as my Akashic records, or help me to channel something. And what I've seen is mixed reviews. Some people love it, right? They're excited. They're getting messages that based on what ChatGPT probably knows about you in your searches, it seems relevant. Other times people are going, down the roads of like psychosis and having, some really adverse experiences. What's your take on like using AI to quote unquote channel? Do you think that is safe? Do you think we should be strictly like organic or something in between?
Well, if you ask Chat, Pi, Gemini, any of those to simulate a channeling session, they'll do it pretty well. But it's a simulation. It's not the real thing at all.
Right.
As far as I know. Now, if you step back from that and say, well, listen, a human being is really a spirit and a soul taking in a body, a physical body, to have a human experience. Why couldn't a spirit and a soul inhabit a machine to have a mechanical experience? Well,
it still is infinite.
Anytime I think I know something, I pretty quickly find out there's more to it.
Right.
So I initially think that these platforms are done by programmers and engineers that give us access to everything humanity has done as much as they can. So if you want to know something about it, well, they'll contact the experts on that subject and they'll give you a readout on it. Fair enough. If it goes beyond that, where there actually is a spiritual essence inhabiting this in some way, I am hesitant to dismiss possibilities.
Right.
You can imagine them, maybe they can happen. I have no thought that they have happened, but that parallel of inhabiting a physical body to have a human experience. Why not inhabit a mechanical body to have a different kind of experience?
You're right. I do see that if we are infinite beings and we wanted to experience literally everything A to Z, you know, that might include it, even if it doesn't logically make sense. Yeah, I guess time will tell. And on that subject matter, do you have any? What's your take on people who might be having trouble discerning around what we call like an interference, right? Interference from beings, guides, or even just interference on the clarity and the answers that they're requesting.
You're thinking there could be a malevolent entity involved in this?
Not necessarily, but what makes somebody susceptible to interference, mixed messages, maybe distortions in those? I know for me, I've seen things on a physical level, like if your body is not primed to a certain extent. Now, I'm not saying we all need to be like raw vegans for the rest of our life, but I think a level of physical health is required to hold the higher frequencies, right? Versus somebody who might be very unhealthy. Can they sustain that higher vibration? I'm not positive. But what would make somebody, I guess, more susceptible to any types of interference or even just messages that don't really fully land?
You're really opening a very big can of worms here.
The Pandora's box.
There are many things that
Okay.
could cause that interference. I'll give you an example of ancestral memory. Somebody was experiencing diarrhea. Okay. Turns out, based on channeled information, you don't have to believe this, but the story goes that their ancestors centuries ago were in the presence of high vibrational individuals who were on the planet, had enslaved these ancestors, tortured them. And I guess when you're tortured, you evacuate or eliminate. And so the diarrhea is the cause of it is this ancestral memory of being abused. So that's one possible source of potential interference.
For sure.
Past life trauma. Maybe you were a healer in a past life. It happened to be in a society that thought you were doing the work of the devil.
Right, that witch wound that a lot of healers face, for sure, like being reprimanded or even, you know, murdered or worse because of their gifts.
Absolutely. So there's a whole range of things there that could account for the interference. There could be trauma in the present life. So these things have to be investigated. They have to be cleared. Investigate them. Yes, hypnotherapy can do a little channel, uncover quite a bit. I'd maybe start with employing a channeler and see what you can get to if indeed, you know, you feel there are some blocks or interference, you know, interfering with clear communication sort of thing.
Absolutely. That's great. And it's funny too, because it's not always a one size fits all, right? We have the traditional diagnoses and some of those may be super valid. And then sometimes we have things where it's so tailored to that, you know, individual's epigenetic lineage, their, you know, their early life experiences, their core wounds, all of those things where, again, channeled session hypnotherapy and even some of that intuitive body work, like using a pendulum maybe on a board to get some next steps on who could you talk to, might be a good start.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, this has been an incredibly rich conversation, and I'm really delighted by it. You offer a plethora of wisdom, and I just love what you're doing. Do you have any, I guess, last words sound so harsh, but do you have any, you know, guiding messages to the collective? Right? What does humanity need to hear at this time?
You know, the biggest message that comes through is spoken by many of the beings, but Jesus has spoken it very largely in channeled sessions. When he was on earth, our records of that say he was preaching love your neighbor and love God. No, they got it wrong. He said, my number one teaching was self-love. You cannot love other people or anybody or anything until you love yourself first. So I said, well, look, I think a lot of us are walking around thinking pretty good of ourselves. We don't hate ourselves, but he said, yeah, most of you got a little work to do. I said, okay, well, what shape does that work look like? Or how do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, here's one way. He said, look in the mirror, look in your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and say, Melissa, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a hug. Now, I think there's a couple of other ways. One is we often reflect back on our life and we identify times that we regret.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, shit, I really blew it there. I wish I could live that over. And well, if you keep thinking that way, you're lowering your vibration
Interesting.
and you're undermining your self love. So, the option is you can look at that event and celebrate that as a result of it, today you are a much smarter person.
Mm-hmm.
You're not repeating that. You're doing better than that.
Mm-hmm.
You're progressing. You're evolving. That's cause for celebration.
And an accelerated rate, usually.
Yeah. And if you think that way, then vibration goes up. You're evolving.
Mm.
That's part of how you can love yourself a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Be down on yourself for where you think you screwed up. You probably got your best lessons from that screw up.
It's true. And a lot of the times, holding a grudge against ourselves, or what's the word, where we ruminate over the same things over and over and again, that can sometimes actually cause us to attract more of the same experience that we'd rather not have. So I think, one of the ways that I work with my coaching clients in these things is, how do you recapitulate and extract the wisdom, forgive yourself for having that moment. Okay, yeah, you fucked up, or sorry, excuse my French, shit hit the fan. But however, there is a lesson. So extract that, integrate it. And now how is my life different as a result of this, this like shortcut that we just took to get smarter and better as a person?
Yeah, the beings would concur, I think, overwhelmingly that self-love is the number one message from all of them.
Love
and
it.
the number one area where we all need to do the most work.
I love that. I love that. I know the mirror exercise can be uncomfortable for some. I remember many years ago when I was first starting off this journey, right, and going through a lot of healing childhood stuff and a previous marriage and yada yada. Even looking at myself in the eye and saying I love you, I was like, this is goofy. Like, I had a hard time receiving that kind of love. But it really does take a little bit of repetition. And my friend Allison shared a good hack. I believe one of the eyes, maybe the left eye, is directly related to our subconscious. So if we can stare in that and to just pour a ton of light until it softens, you'll actually feel like a visceral response, like a sigh, a deep breath, a swallowing, something that allows you to see that your nervous system also just took that in.
Good.
Interesting. So self-love, in order to give from a full cup and in order to expand our capacity to, meet people, right, deeply. That's the gist of the theme.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just came back from an auto repair shop, and there's a young guy running it, but he inherited from an older guy, and the older guy was there today. He's retired, but he was just filling in because the younger guy's on vacation. And he was lamenting that his wife is spending their retirement working with their kids and grandkids and doing everything for them.
Wow.
Somehow, I think I lost the connection there for just a second. Yeah, she was making herself sick, and blood pressure's up, and she looks about 20 years older than she is, and just not spending any time with herself.
It's interesting to see how we really can wither, from stuff where even if all of our foundational or, our physical needs are met, that last aspect, that self-fulfillment aspect, it really does play a part in our vitality and well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I view life as a three-legged stool: mind, body, and spirit. And if we're not addressing all three of them, we've got a wobbly stool.
That's a good, yeah, that's a good metaphor. I love that. So thank you, Peter, so much for all of your insights and for the love you pour into your work. It's very important work, and I really just commend you for supporting all of those, luminaries for stepping into their path of impact and service. For anyone that's curious about Peter and would love to connect more with him, I will drop his website, his YouTube there. You can also subscribe to his newsletter. And there are ways to go deeper with Peter as well, too, if you're interested in either exploring your channeling or deepening into that. There's a great community over on his site.
I would just say one thing. I don't have the newsletter any longer. I've kind
Ah,
of cleared that away so
you're
that
right. And we just talked about that this morning. You're right. Thank you for the correction. So YouTube is best then?
uh, my website probably is where you can see most. And but yes, many of the recorded messages and interviews I've done are on YouTube.
Beautiful. Okay, I will drop the YouTube and the website there. And for those who feel inclined, be sure to check out his books as well. I know you can purchase them on Amazon, amongst others. You'll see them directly on the website. I've purchased 2 or 3, and so far they're extremely juicy, extremely valuable. So I strongly recommend to support local and to see what wisdom is inside there. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. This is an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, this was fun, and if it isn't fun, we should be doing something else.
That's true. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining on, and until next time.
Yeah, bye for now.